Oh, hey. Here's another item that just came in that you might be interested in looking at. Obviously, there's no question about what this is. This is a wood-burning stove that James just brought in because James brings in the coolest things. James, where did you come across this wood-burning stove, man?
I bought this in North Carolina several years ago, and I was going to put it in my place and make a lamp out of it. I've done nothing with it. But the great feature with this is it comes with everything. This is the little deal that picks up the eyes and put your wood in, whatever. This is where the flue comes to pump the smoke out of the house. This comes apart, and it is the ventilation system. You can convert it, give it more or less air. And interesting story on a stove like this. We lived in an old tenant farmhouse that was so cold to my father. This is not my stove, I bought this, but it's very similar to one that was in our house, tenant farmhouse. And it was so cold one winter that the Daddy always kept a little pot of water on it, the heat, to put some moisture in the air because wood fires are so dry.
I like a vaporizer.
Yeah, and it was so cold at night, the fire went out in the heater. It got cold, and the water on the pot for humidity froze. Before we got up to go to school, go to work, go to the farm, whatever, it froze, literally froze. That's how cold those old tenant houses was. Every time the wind blew, the curtains would move and the rugs would flop.
You lived in a tenant farmhouse during your childhood?
In North Carolina, tobacco farm.
just a tenant farmhouse.
Yeah, it was nothing but a lean-to.
But it was y'all's farm, right?
Black or white, you were all treated the same. There was no money at the end of the year. You could never settle up with the owner, the landlord, the owner of the farm. When you did settle up, you were always in the hole. You always owed the company stove. Whether you were in a textile mill or on the tenant farm, or sharecropper or tenant farm, the only difference between black and white, the blacks were sharecroppers, the whites were tenant farmers.
You know, 16 tons. What do you get? Another day older and deeper in debt. St. Peter, don't you call, I can't go.
I don't know. The company stove. Stove. Anyway, I found this, and I've had it from in my shop 20 years in storage. I decided to bring it down here as a vintage item. I may make a lamp out of it yet, or I may find a good home for it. I don't know.
Make a lamp out of it. How do you plan on making a lamp from this?
I'll wire it and bring it through here, the flue, and put a light in it and shade on it, and bang. When I had it in my apartment, then I moved to my storage. It was just a conversational piece, and probably I spilled something at some point on the surface. I got to clean this up and polish it, black it out. I have some stove polish that you just wipe on, wash it, and get the whatever this is, oil or sugar or whatever.
Well, this is pretty much what it looked like like the one. Well, this is pretty much the same shape as the one that was in use during your childhood.
Right,
I mean, it looks like it's.
Except when it get hot, they purge themselves, they clean themselves. Because of what you spill on it, it'll burn it off in a heartbeat. I bought this stove. This is not the one we had. The one we had was just a little bit higher. You could burn either wood or coal in it, and we used both depending on the situation and how cold it was. But the story is, it was so cold in those old raggedy houses that when the wind blew, the curtains moved and the linoleum rugs flopped on the floor because the houses were up off the ground, and it got so cold in there, the fire went out somewhere 1 or 2 o'clock in the morning, and the house continued to get colder and colder and colder until the water that Daddy had on the stove froze. So you can imagine how cold it was in that house. When he got up and I got up, we had to break the ice in the water bucket and get the dipper out and break the ice in that pot so we could start the fire and have moisture in there as soon as it got going. But right on the other hand, in about 5 minutes you had a roaring fire in these things. Now that's where the ashes were, and you could sift the ashes. And when I put it together, pull that out, that'll show. I just haven't reassembled, but that's the ash shaker. And you can scrape, you can dig the ashes out with a little shovel and whatever. Great memories. It'd burn a house down in a heartbeat if you didn't watch it, but you had to.
Oh yeah, I'm sure there were plenty of farmhouses that caught fire. Because I mean, you know, what were you gonna do? You're gonna burn these things, and you kind of go to bed. I mean, you know, you had to have some way to, when the wind blow through those windows, it doesn't matter how much cover you have on, it's not gonna.
Well,
that biting wind's gonna get through one way or
we
another.
moved into one, literally, I woke up one morning and I started to move under the quilts. It seemed like the quilts were 6 or 8 inches thick on me, trying to stay warm. And when I moved, I noticed there was something fluffy in the room, and I looked up, and it was snow. It had snowed that night, and the snow just blew right in the corners of the house, right on my bed.
And you spent your entire childhood in a tenant farmhouse like this?
Until I left home at 18, went off to college. First time I'd ever been around real heat.